All right, we'll let people join. Our recording has started, and then we'll get things moving here. I think Ken joined as an attendee, so hopefully there he is.
Have you've upgraded me or to panelist?
Yes, you are here.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We were having technical difficulties.
No worries. Well, we are ready to get it started. So if you want to kick us off, Commissioner, feel free to go ahead.
Got it. Are we on already?
We're on. We're going.
Oh, hey, everybody. Sorry about that, and sorry for my tardiness. Thanks, everyone, for joining our Resilience Action Forum. The big news, obviously, this week, we were able to pass at City Commission unanimously the greenhouse gas reduction plan. Thanks to the advocacy of folks who came. We know your concerns about the plan as well, but thank you for advocating. And of course, the staff for helping prepare us and put it all together and brief all the commissioners. So that's the main news here, and now it's to put it into action. And I'll hand it over, and I'm available for any questions anyone has.
Great. So just a few notes, and then I'm going to give an overview presentation actually of the greenhouse gas reduction plan. But just as a note, and I'll repeat this at the end, that we will not be having a meeting next month as it is around the time of the holidays. And then starting in 2022, we will be adjusting the dates of our meetings to be the first Thursdays of the month. If you go to miamigov.com/mayorsforum, that schedule has already been posted on the webpage, so you can check it out there and start to register for next year's series of meetings as already. So we'll reiterate that and send more messages out. But for those who are here, you get to hear it first and help us spread the word, please. I'm going to kick it off with a brief presentation on the Miami Forever Carbon Neutral Plan, and then we will take it as usual where we go into your questions and answers. Feel free to use the Q&A for questions, and then the chat box is available for all. All right. Moving my screen over. There we go. All right. So our greenhouse gas reduction plan, Miami Forever Carbon Neutral, was adopted at Commission on November 18th. And it is our pathway to our carbon neutrality by 2050 at the latest. So we have a number of climate resilience plans here in the city of Miami. We have Resilient 305. We have our Miami Forever Climate Ready Adaptation Plan. We have our Stormwater Master Plan, which is a capital component of our adaptation strategy. And now we have the Miami Forever Carbon Neutral Plan, Carbon Mitigation Plan. So all of these serve slightly different roles that make up the climate resilience agenda of the city of Miami. The overall goal, as we've stated the whole time, is carbon neutrality by 2050 at latest. And this plan is centered around steep greenhouse gas reductions by 2035. The goal we've set here is a 60% reduction below our 2018 baseline. And as we've said before, this is the minimum that we were working to achieve. If we can exceed and do more, we certainly hope to. Part of this plan, we projected what would happen if the city were to take no action. And we found that based on our city's population growth, that we would be emitting an additional 1 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year by 2050 if we were to take no action at all. As mentioned before, the baseline for this plan is 2018. We did an inventory for the first time in almost a decade, a few years ago, and found that 55% of citywide emissions come from the building sector, residential and commercial energy, and 43% come from on-road transportation, so cars and trucks and things like that. So that's really what the plan is focused around. So we've shown this wedge chart before, but just to break it down again in the latest version, that the 2035 goal is a 60% reduction below our 2018 level. And so this green line that goes through the middle, that is our 2035 goal. And the way that this breaks down in metric targets is 100% carbon-free electricity. That's in alignment with a federal government goal. And so we are, we're trying to work with the federal government to achieve that, that objective. In addition, energy efficiency improvements. We don't have a metric target just yet because we are still working to collect baseline information through the Building Efficiency 305 program. So in time, we hope to update that and have a numeric target for energy efficiency in buildings. Fuel switch, a 35% reduction in on-site natural gas. That is having buildings upgrade their appliances to electric and efficiency of natural gas utility of appliances, especially, when things reach the end of their useful life. For travel mode, 15% less single occupant vehicle trips. And so that's having people move towards biking, walking, public transit, things like that. And then lastly, 40% of passenger vehicles being electric vehicles. And right now we are using county data as a proxy for city data because we don't have city specific data. So hopefully in the future, we can get more specific for City of Miami. So in order to do this, we have to go green. And so that stands for addressing the ways we get around Miami, renewable energy, electric vehicles, energy efficiency, all of which will help us build a new green economy. The breakdown of this plan, there are 55 actions, 33 of them directly address greenhouse gas mitigation, 9 of them address the new green economy, and 13 are overall enabling actions that address sustainability as a whole or apply to multiple different sectors. We had to work with departments across the city to develop these plans, get feedback, and work out what the implementation steps would be. So they've been socialized, these actions have signed on to them, and will be partner entities in helping the city move it forward. It really is a holistic, full city effort to achieve the goals of this plan. So there are 20 prioritized actions in this plan, and that's what I'm going to go through now. These prioritized actions were found to have major impact. The city needs to be working on, most soon. They're foundational, and some of them were a bit more complex. So we wanted to devote some extra effort to mapping out the path to implementation. We also did a lot of community engagement throughout this process. So I want to thank everyone here. Many of you who have been participating have been people who have come to our meetings, answered our surveys. So thank you very much. Some of the, the criteria that we used for prioritizing actions came from public meetings that we had and hearing what co-benefits were most important to the community. Other, ways that public feedback was integrated into the plan was one thing we heard was solid waste, recycling, composting actions were missing. We added those in. We added extra actions for external partners in our new green economy section, realizing that we need to work with our partners and give them some guidance. And so there were also a lot of feedback on the ways that these actions were implemented, not necessarily the actions themselves, but the way that they would be rolled out in the future. So we've integrated some of that into our implementation plan, which is in Appendix C of the plan. And also in the future, as we go forward, we have all these notes saved so we can refer back to them. A lot about, equity concerns and where in the city these actions should roll out first. So I'm going to fly through the prioritized actions, and these of course can be found in the document, which can be found at miamigov.com/GHG plan. For getting around Miami, there are 10 total actions. We have 3 prioritized actions: reducing emissions from employee commute, collaborating with the county and moving forward on our bicycle master plan, and expanding micromobility options, which we'll talk about in a little bit. For renewable energy, our prioritized actions include requiring new buildings to be solar and storage ready, which will be at a low to no cost for new buildings, and as well as working to figure out additional policy and financial incentives to increase private solar installation. For electric vehicles, we had 5 prioritized actions, and this one is great because we already have a market trend pushing in this direction. So how can the city of Miami support that that private market push? So we want to develop an EV master plan to map out where chargers need to be installed and understand the projections of growth of this industry in Miami. Develop technical guidance to help people install and retrofit, and or for new to include EV charger infrastructure. Partnering with major employers in multifamily buildings. That's where we've heard from the public. That's where the real opportunity is, and that's where the limitation is in adopting an electric vehicle themselves. Building on our EV capability ordinance to move it towards EV ready and EV requirement in the future. And then lastly, electrifying 100% of the city's administrative fleet, including the trolleys by 2035. So that's one of the first major actions we hope to work on. We plan to work on, we will work on now that the plan has been adopted. Energy efficiency, we have quite a few. The BE 305 program, the improving public benefits tracking so we can understand LEED buildings and who's taking advantage of our green public benefits. Requiring new buildings, new public buildings, rather, new City of Miami buildings to be built to net zero energy standards, adopting single family home energy disclosure. So like a benchmarking, but for single family, and then having those policies over time move into building performance standards. And then lastly, making all non-emergency energy use in public buildings carbon-free by 2035. For the new green economy, this is a whole separate appendix, Appendix A, a really great report that many of you contributed to. We have 5 sub-goals here. I did not list out the actions because we didn't have any specific prioritized actions here, but there are 9 actions and they relate to growing the green economy ecosystem. So that's working with our partners to inform them of our goals and other goals so we can all be in alignment and working towards the same greenhouse gas reduction objectives. Recruiting and retaining a green workforce. So how can the city use its programs like Venture Miami, the Opportunity Center, and developing a plan to train and recruit employees to stay here and work on our climate change initiatives. Open occupational pathways, so introducing people to this kind of workforce and getting them integrated and understanding the benefits and the fact that it can be living wage, that it can be stable. And then lastly, welcoming and supporting green industry. Procurement is a big thing. It's a big driver of our local green economy. So how can anchor institutions and municipalities help drive that growth by greening their procurement practices and supporting businesses in other ways? The last section is our enabling actions. These were kind of our holistic overall actions. The prioritized actions here was to improve city data on our waste streams, train city employees on these new infrastructures and technologies. So that way, as we see them, in the permit process being installed in the city, that we can understand and be ready and move those processes along much more quickly. And then lastly, this is supportive to many actions, is to research and develop financial and technical assistance programs to help people install these technologies like solar and EV chargers in their homes, at private businesses, small businesses, and especially focus on those low income communities. So that way they can yield those benefits as well. So how are we going to track success? How are you all going to know that we're actually doing these things? We are required to do a greenhouse gas inventory every 2 years. So the next one will be for 2020. And we will use that greenhouse gas inventory as an opportunity to also update on progress of the actions in this plan, as well as the adaptation plan. We are also required to update the plan every 5 years. So the next time we will be doing a holistic overview of the plan is in 2026. We will be reporting on top-down metrics, total emissions, how much the emissions have changed, percent of trips taken in private vehicles, percent of the electricity fuel mix that is carbon-free, and percent of passenger vehicles that are electric. In addition to that, we will be providing updates on bottom-up metrics, the implementation steps, and the metrics that we have prescribed for our prioritized actions, the ones that I've just listed. So the next steps, obviously the plan was adopted. So now we get to move forward with it as our official guidance. The language of the resolution is on the right here, and we'll be moving forward with our phase 1 prioritized actions. As I mentioned, creating a plan to electrify the city's fleet is one of our first premier actions that we'll be working on. So that is my overview. I will pause now. I see we have some questions, and then we will start today's dialogue. Thank you very much. So if people have comments or questions, they can put them comments in the chat, questions in the Q&A, and also, as always, raise a hand. So one of the questions is elaborate on the incentives to switch from natural gas to electric. You know, that as they said, the city is not able to, we are preempted from a, you know, kind of ban or electric new construction. So that's something that we need to look into. We don't have answers yet, but it's something that we want to work towards. We don't have a specific policy in place at the moment. Can we get a copy of the presentation? Of course, I'll post this on our GHG plan page, miamigov.com/GHG plan. And then the other question we have here is, you know, what's going on with the scooter program? So maybe that is a question for Commissioner Russell, if he is still here.
Sorry, I'm being very irresponsible. Can you repeat the question, please?
No problem. Someone had
And I'm not
mentioned-
even buckled. Look at that. I'm not even buckled.
So Commissioner, we will respectfully ask that you be resilient in your driving.
Commissioner, the question was in relation to the scooter program. You know, we mentioned that micromobility is something that will help us reduce our emissions
Yes.
from the transportation sector. So wanting to know what's the latest in
Yes.
that.
So got it. So we're amongst friends here, so I can be very candid. Sometimes a setback is potentially your best step forward. The people who cared about scooters that use them up to 7,000 rides a day didn't really know they had to advocate. They were kind of, I won't say taking it for granted, they were just enjoying a service that existed. However, the people who are against scooters, they fear about safety, they don't like the clutter. They are very vocal and have been vocal for 2 years now. So I've supported in the creation of this program and the support of this program and the improving of this program. I've had to work with neighbors in a love-hate relationship with the program, and they've been trusting me up to now. However, the political will hadn't been there. I mean, it was really only in my district. So I was relying on the support of at least 2 commissioners to at least let us try this pilot program. The vote was cast to cancel the pilot program last week, but there is now a special meeting next Monday to explore whether or not to bring back the pilot program. And I think those who care about it started to advocate. Over 100 jobs were lost when the pilot program was canceled. And of course, all the scooter companies were put off the street. So maybe they began to advocate. I don't know. But at least now there looks like there is a will to bring the conversation back and either potentially reinstitute the pilot program with new safety measures and docking stations, et cetera, which is great. And then we also have an RFP out right now for a permanent version of the program. But the political will may or may not be there for that either. So we need people who care about this and micromobility and getting cars off the street and lower emission forms of transportation to advocate at commission and in writing and to the Herald and whoever. If you care about this and you think it's a good thing, you should speak up. I'm obviously a supporter and I'm glad to see it coming back if it comes back. So there's a special commission meeting next Monday. It says 9:30, but I've advised I'm available at 10:30, which is what we told the clerk when we were asked. So hopefully there will be a vote on it there and look forward to your support.
And one of the questions was, will the special meeting be televised? Yes, that is going to be streamed as always. on the city's website and channel 77 and all the typical channels that the commission meetings are typically streamed on.
Yeah, and fun fact, the scooter program has generated $2.4 million in revenue for the city that is codified to only be spent on bicycle lanes and road improvements, road and sidewalk improvements. So it's meant to sort of fix its own problems through the funding that's created, which is great. So I look at it as a win-win. I know there are risks within the program and we need to address some of the clutter issues, but the long-term benefits, if we get this right, far outweigh those growing pains.
Thank you very much for that, Commissioner. One of the questions here is, has there been consideration of how a remote or continuing the hybrid workforce program at the city could contribute to reducing single passenger vehicle emissions? So yes, definitely. That is a big component of how we can reduce our employee commute emissions so that we are, walking the walk. And so that's definitely, something that is positively contributing to that, or I guess reducing the emissions from that sector. And there's other things that we can do, related to public transit and things like that. So those are all things that we're considering as effective on that goal.
I'm doing it wrong. I'm taking meetings while I commute.
There you go. We had another question just quickly on the meeting on Monday. Can you repeat the details for that meeting, either Abigail or Commissioner Russell?
Sure, it's a special meeting that's actually been called by Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla. The item is sponsored by him, which is a good sign because he was the initiator of canceling the program. So I imagine he has some requests of how to improve the program or conditions under which he'd be open to extending the pilot program, but we'll see when he brings it. But the language of the item is to take steps to figure out how to, well, I don't have the words verbatim, but it's really to figure out how to reinstate the pilot program at this point.
Okay, and then one last question on the scooters that we have for now. They're a hot topic. Is what has the city been looking at in regards to, docking stations and other ways to address the kind of clutter issue?
Yes, so there's a company called Swift Mile that we're working with. It's one word together, Swift Mile, and they specialize in multi-company docking stations that charge scooters while reducing clutter, obviously. They've been deployed in a limited fashion because it's a pilot program, so it's not worthy of their full citywide investment, but they can go in rights of way of the city or in parks or in parking spaces. We want them out of the way of ADA, obviously, and pedestrian activity, but we want them accessible and convenient for riders to dock. They're ready to deploy 80 of them if we wanted to right now over the next, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks, if it were approved as a permanent program, but it hasn't gotten to that point yet. We may need to ask them to deploy further, even in the pilot, to help reduce the clutter. That may be one of the concessions, which I think is a great one. But it would not convert to a docked only program, because we believe one of the elements of success for scooters, as opposed to city bike, is that flexibility of being able to park or find a scooter from your app wherever you may be dining or working or commuting. And so there will be an incentive program to use the docking stations, whether it be free rides or half price rides. Who knows what it'll be, but that's part of the RFP. The competition amongst the scooter companies is to see who can create the most innovative way to achieve our goals, which is less clutter and, of course, safety.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. We have 2 separate questions in relation to electrifying the fleet. So one of them is asking about, which components of the fleet are we looking at? Does that include solid waste? Does that include police? And the other is where is the electricity for the fleet of electrification going to be coming from? So before I answer anything, I'm not sure if Zeri, if you have anything to say on the fleet electrification goal and action.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Zeri Ihekwaba from the City Manager's Office. We are looking into potentially looking at feasibility of conversion of both the light fleets and heavy fleets to EV vehicles. To the specific question as to the energy source, obviously we are looking at a program with FPL. As we all know, FPL has been exploring the possibility of solar as part of their contribution to the national grid. So we are trying to make sure that some of the energy sources will be based strictly on the solar component of their energy base.
Thanks, Zeri. And in relation to the types of the fleet, for initially, we're going to start on the administrative fleet, and also looking at trolleys, especially as there are a lot of grants and different incentives right now for starting to pilot electric trolleys and electric buses. So we'll be looking into just piloting those and learning a lot. And then, as we have best practices and learned lessons, starting to move into the other components of, the other fleets that the city does have, because there are different concerns with, these different departments. So we really need to understand kind of how it's implemented and the best practices before we expand out to the other fleets in the city. Okay, one of the questions from Dave Dobler, hello, is City of Miami was working on modifying special events permits to reduce and eliminate single-use plastics. Is that project back on the table? So yes, that is a component in our plan, and I'm going to let Melissa Hughes say more about that.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. So the effort to reduce single-use plastics at special events is coming through a sustainable events guidelines. So it's first a guidelines, and we are hoping to codify and make that something more mandatory later on. But right now it's in the form of guidelines.
Thanks. And could you let people know kind of what types of considerations are in those guidelines?
Yeah, so the guidelines, like I said before, it pertains to larger events. So it covers everything from food waste, potential composting, reducing single-use plastics, effect on the environment, wherever that might be, taking into consideration things like glitter and streamers, noise abatement. It's really quite vast. And it looks at all aspects of planning and putting on a special event in the city of Miami, and then how to reduce our waste, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and also protect water quality, but whatever other ecosystems we have in Miami as well. And so we're working on that with the Ocean Conservancy. It's currently in draft right now, and we are hoping to get that out beginning of next quarter or beginning of next year.
Thanks, Melissa. We also have a few actions. One action that we've added to the plan, and as we heard from people, was to think about the single-use plastics, consider things like composting and food waste recovery. So there are multiple organizations in the city. So we want to work to uplift them and expand the plastic-free 305 initiatives in partnership with Greater Miami and the Beaches. So that's the County Miami Beach, helping connect people to these single waste plastic reduction efforts, community composting efforts, and food waste recovery. So especially as we have a lot of restaurants in the city of Miami, that can be a big way for us to reduce our waste. So that is definitely a suite of people who are addressing solid waste that we want to help businesses get connected to. All right, we have a hand up from Mihai. So you should be able to, oh wait. Oh yeah, you should be able to speak now.
Hello. Yes.
Hi,
hello.
Mihai.
Hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good. And you and everybody is doing well. Yes, good to see everybody doing well. Congratulations for passing the Miami Forever Carbon Neutral Plan.
Thank you very much.
Uh, I was impressed to hear what you said at our last meeting, Alisa. You told us that at a certain point we'll overshoot 2 degrees, and in order to get back to a level that's better compatible with the future of civilization, we'll have to invest in carbon capture and to pull the carbon out of the atmosphere. And the alternative to that is a rapid shift toward renewable energy. That's awesome. Alisa, this is what we try to say all along, right? So this is the problem. We are right now going to a cliff, right? We are not acting fast enough to prevent a future that is incompatible with the future of civilization. And the alternative would be much better, which is a rapid shift towards renewable energy. And so I am wondering, look, I showed up at the commission meeting last week, and I suggested that we have a workshop where we can interact in a way that is not so, you know, one way. Look, at this moment, you turn on the microphones, you decide who speaks, who doesn't. You can show us, you can share your screen with us. We cannot share our screen with you. So it would be much better if we had a workshop that was in a slightly different format, because we might have a chance to come to some conclusion together.
Yeah, we are always available for, one-on-one in person, not in person, in person or virtual meetings. So, if you want to have that kind of dialogue, you can definitely reach out to our staff directly. And that goes to anyone.
What I'm trying to say is that if you show us how the emissions of Miami are gonna go down and so on with a graph, I would love for everybody here to have the possibility to see our explanation of how this is gonna work, how this depends and how much it depends on FPL and how little it depends on the 500,000 people who live in Miami and so on. There would be a room for a better interaction if you are not controlling it so tightly.
All right, well, we will have a discussion, off here about that another time, and we can walk through it. And but we do appreciate the feedback as always, Mihai. So thank you.
Thank you.
We have some other questions. There is a question about illegal dumping and debris on the side of the road, and what the city is doing to combat that. That was definitely some feedback that we heard from the public, and as we were speaking to the public solid waste department about the solid waste goals, they were saying this is a really big problem that takes up a lot of their attention. So I'm not sure if Zeri or someone else on the call is able to speak on the city's illegal dumping initiatives.
So the city of Miami has a program run through the Environmental Enforcement Unit of Miami Police, which was recently moved back to Department of Solid Waste. We do have cameras that are being installed in certain hotspots to see if we can capture in real time violators of the illegal dumping ordinance. So we do have a robust program in place. If you do have a typical location you've observed that typically will experience illegal dumping from time to time, please provide that address for us. You probably wouldn't notice some of these cameras in the public right away because they are installed on utility poles, very much higher than where the line of sight of a normal pedestrian will see. So we're using those cameras to see, and the Miami police have made some arrests already. And some of those illegal dumpers seems to be coming from actually outside the city of Miami. You see folks, especially general contractors, people doing cleanup, folks picking up trash from homes, and they feel that the best place to drop them will be within the city. So some examples have been made. Police have made some arrests and they are pending prosecution. So we do have a program in place. And like I said, if you do have an address within your neighborhood or a public street that you observe people doing that periodically, please furnish us with that address location and we'll follow up with that.
Thank you. And I know that we've been working on gathering information about the waste that is collected in the city and where it comes from. So I know, Melissa, you had been working on that circularity assessment protocol. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so the circularity assessment protocol looks into or was analyzing plastic waste in the city, and we did look at illegal dumping, but also just kind of trash scattered around, whether they're on the barrier islands or in the parks or just in the street. And so we got a lot of good analysis on where it's happening and some suggestions on how to prevent it. But a big one was education and outreach. And that report also is going to be released in early next year as well. And we're we are planning to workshop the results of that with the community. So all of you here will get notification on that. And just to kind of share feedback about what the analysis showed, but then also to get your feedback on specific initiatives and how we can kind of work together on this. So look out for that early next year as well.
Thanks, Melissa. We have an additional question talking about, not a specific question, but it just says tree canopy, rejuvenation, restoration, green space. So that's kind of a general prompt asking what is the city doing to, address this, our shading and our green space issues. So I know we have people on the call from parks, from public works, from building. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to talk about what their division is, what their department is doing on this issue. But one thing I will mention is that we have been working with Google Environmental Insights Explorer. They gave us really great tree canopy data. I'll find the link and post it here, but it really shows on a very granular level what the tree canopy of the city of Miami looks like. And then last summer, we also did a heat mapping exercise of the city. So those are two pieces of data that we can use to address the extreme heat and shading of the city in a kind of a data-driven way. And that can help drive some of our efforts. So I'm not sure if Commissioner, I saw you turned on, so maybe you have some stuff to say about trees. I know you're
Absolutely.
Girls,
So the city of Miami has a very robust tree protection ordinance. I actually strengthened it a few years ago to clarify some of the fines and rules about how we protect our tree canopy from development that values built out square footage over canopy. We know that from a financial perspective, even from a real estate perspective, the reason these neighborhoods have risen in value is because of that protected canopy. So to actually kill the golden goose wouldn't be even in the interest of development. Unfortunately, most development is measured on built out square footage, and that for that reason, there is a push to remove trees every time a lot is redeveloped for commercial speculation. We've tried to make differentiations between homesteaded properties and commercial development to differentiate, because what happens is we raise the fines so high to really stave off the development issues, because a small fine is not even a deterrent when you're building a multi-million-dollar home. However, when a resident gets accidentally caught up in that fine because they inadvertently remove a tree they shouldn't have, and they're suddenly stuck with a $50,000 fine, that really lends itself to the argument about property rights. And I have several commissioners who value property rights over tree regulation. They say, listen, if it's your property, you should be able to do what you want with it. And especially when these heavy fines hit a resident or a sweet old lady who just hired a mow and blow team to trim a tree and they did it, too aggressive, that pressures commissioners to kill the program altogether. So I know that there is current works there's movement in the works to address the tree ordinance, and maybe not in the favor of protection. So please stay vigilant. Keep an eye out for any ordinances that you see as draft regulations that may change the ordinance or weaken the ordinance. And please advocate. We're working with groups like FIU who have a relief program, LEAF, where they're helping us with a tree census and helping us quantify the actual resilience benefits of a given tree so that we can actually put a numerical value to tree canopy size and shade created and temperature reduction, oxygen increase, etc. But it's all got to pass the political muster. So I look forward to your help in advocating in making sure we keep a strong and robust tree code, which we have now. But thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if there's anyone else on the call who has anything to add about the city's tree programs. We have a cross section of people here.
Yeah, I think the vice chair captured the intent of the tree program. And if there are any revisions or updates to the tree ordinance, that will be fully socialized before the city moves forward.
Great, thank you for clarifying that, Zeri.
I'll just add real quick, in terms of green space, because I think that was in the question as well, whenever we are looking at redesigning certain areas and whenever we're doing signature for our bond projects, we're always considering how to improve and increase the green space. So for example, with Brickell Bay Drive, that's one of the ones in the pipeline. We're looking at how to increase green space there. So it's sprinkled throughout. And then some of the other projects that we have going on is the Windward One-Arf project and the Southwest Streetscape Master Plan. Both of those are kind of larger scale, but also look at how to incorporate tree canopy as well as additional green space and just create a more pedestrian and bicycle friendly civic space.
Thanks, Melissa. I was going to bring up those projects, so thank you for doing that. While we're on this topic, what are requirements around native landscaping and pollinators? Do we have any policies related to that? And planning is not here, so they would be probably the best people to respond, but
I can touch on it.
Thank you, Jose.
So the city's tree ordinance does not prohibit any planting of trees. What it does is it encourages native landscaping and pollinators, but it does not kind of dictate what you can plant in private property. However, there is a right tree and right place program within Public Works on the right of way that they're also recapturing. And with the Southwest Street Tree Master Plan, they're taking these requirements for areas that may flood more often, will have trees that can intake much more water, as opposed to other areas that is a higher ground and does not get, has drought seasons and other issues. So that would probably be something that we need to explore with nonprofits, and maybe we can, in our tree giveaways, we do include some of these native landscaping plants and trees that we give away to the public. So we can continue to look at maybe something for bees and butterflies and others.
To add to that, on the topic of native, so in the Miami 21, a part of that is the waterfront design guidelines, and in Appendix B of those guidelines, there is requirements for native trees, native plantings, and salt tolerant species where applicable, and there's also a canopy requirement as well. I don't remember the details, but that's where it's found in the waterfront design guidelines, Appendix B.
Thanks. And I also want to, reiterate for people on this call is that, this is meant to be a place where if you all have, ideas, example ordinances, best practices from other cities. You know, as you hear the conversation happening today, or if you remember to bring it next month, that, you know, we'd really love to be connected with those best practices. There's a lot out there and it's hard to know everything. So if you have a policy that you've seen in another place that you think would be really beneficial for the city, we'd happy to learn more about it and see how we can adopt it into our, you know, our existing codes and policies. All right, so we have a hand raised. Oh, mangroves, yes. Thanks, Eric. We have a hand raised from Ari, so I'm gonna let you speak now. Hi, Ari, and thank you for the congrats.
Hello, thank you. So I'm just gonna restate my question from the chat. Q&A. So first, thank you and congratulations for like passing the greenhouse gas reduction plan. Like it was very good that the commission got it passed, and thanks for that. And my question is, like, how can the city work to aim for more ambitious action, getting us to a green economy rather than relying on carbon capture? And how will they work with FPL to make it happen?
So the question relates to how is the city going to address kind of electric generation and its emissions profile? Obviously, that's a really important part of the you know, carbon neutrality goal. As I mentioned before, we are, you know, trying to rely on the federal government to really push for this and help communities reach that carbon-free electricity goal. And then I'm not sure if there's anything else anyone else on the call has to say about working with our utilities or anything. And we have some chat about best practices, looking at donut economics. So thank you for that reference, Mihai.
I just want to add that being in the city for a few years now, there's been a lot of iterative work. So there's been a consistent increase in commitment. And I would see that going forward for at least in this administration. So as we implement some of these low-hanging fruits, we're going to come back and ask for more additions, more requirements, kind of seeing where we're going to, it's all data-based, which is why, like, for instance, B305 is a benchmarking ordinance. Then we'll look at other possible requirements if it warrants it with the data. That's all.
Thanks, Jose.
Yeah.
Okay, so going to leave it open. We have 5 more minutes if anyone has last questions. Just going to pause in case someone's fingers are going. But as we're waiting, I will again reiterate that. So we are not going to be meeting for the Resilience Action Forum in December, as the date falls in the holiday time. And we will regroup and start meeting again in January with our new schedule. We will be meeting on the first Thursdays of the month. So the next one would be January 6th, 3 p.m. on Zoom. As always, our website, miamigov.com/GHG plan, has our updated schedule for 2022 and the registration link. So that way you can start registering for those and adding them to your calendar at this time. I am not seeing any other questions. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So I'm not sure if Commissioner, you have any closing comments or anything you want to make before we sign off? He's good. He's great. He said it all. Thank you very much. So again, we will see everyone in the new year, and we will post today's video and presentation on our GHG plan website and link to that through Miami Forum, miamigov.com/mayors forum. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the year. Thank you. Or see you on Monday for the scooter meeting. Bye.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, everybody.